Which 2 and 2 did you just recently put together? When I was a little kid, my dad had some friends over to drink beer and watch a movie. My mom made me play in the other room, because this wasn't a movie for kids. So I was playing in the living room as the men laughed, cracked jokes and loud music blasted from the other room. Eventually I wanted to see what the fuss was about, so I crept into the room in time to see a beefy, mostly naked man chained to a bed. Immediately the men start shouting, "Get him out of here. Turn off the movie. He shouldn't see this." And they hustle me out of the room. Being about 6 or 7, I put the pieces together and think they were watching that man get tortured. Later, in my teens, a different answer occurred to me. They were watching porn. They were watching gay bondage porn. But it didn't make sense. None of them were gay, my mom was right there, nobody was masturbating. What was going on? Were they watching it for laughs? Was there a woman I didn't see in the video? Years later I realized what should have been obvious given my long association with the stage show. They had been watching the Rocky Horror Picture Show, and I walked in on the scene where Rocky breaks free of Frank's bedroom to run for freedom. At the end of first grade the teacher asked the class, "So who wants to stay here with me next year?" We all threw up our hands up excited, and she picked one of us. That kid stayed behind when we went to second grade. I think about this once in a while and feel thankful she didn't pick me. Last time I thought about this I realized that I've been missing the mark. That specific student was being left behind that year and the teacher did it in the smoothest way possible. Despite living in various houses growing up, my dad's closet would always smell the exact same way. He said it was the mothballs that he used. Later when I tried pot for the first time I said, "This smells like mothballs." Everyone looked at me funny, and it still took days until I finally realized what that meant. Always thought whipped cream was difficult to make. My friends and I would get excited and impressed that this crepe place would make their whipped cream in-house, as advertised for an extra $1.50. Can't begin to tell you how dumb I felt one day when I realized. It is literally whipped cream. The blacks of the eye are black because there's nothing there. It's just a hole. You're seeing inside their eyeball, but you can't see anything because there's no light in there. The red pupils that you get from flash on a camera are from that light shining on your retinas and their blood supply. Some other animals, like cats, have a special tissue behind their retinas which can reflect back blue, green, or yellow light with flash. Know me, but a boss of mine just realized you can count the steps on a ladder to tell how tall it is. A chum bucket is where you'd keep fish guts, possibly explaining why Plankton's restaurant ain't so busy. The Krusty Krab is in Bikini Bottom. Patrick Star is so stupid because he literally lives under a rock. Plankton eats holographic meatloaf because Plankton eat like the Krusty Krab is a lobster trap. The houses in Bikini Bottom are car parts. If you're a junior, for example Robert Jr., your mother probably screamed your name during S We Never Met Pearl's mother because she was adopted. There's a meme going around about making sure your young kids go to classmates' birthday parties because it's devastating to be a kid and have nobody come to yours. And I thought that I was damn lucky that even though I didn't cast a wide net of friends, everybody always came to my birthday party. My mom was a teacher at my school. It never occurred to me until recently that some of those kids had a vested interest in making sure they came to my birthday party. WWE wrestler The Undertaker's longtime valet was named Paul Bearer, as in someone who carries your casket. I'm embarrassed. My ex-boss and I had a talk about this. When he debuted, both of us were under the impression that Paul Bearer was just his name. He said he learned it was a pun when his dad watched wrestling with him, and chuckled when he heard the name. I figured it out when David Schwimmer starred in a movie called The Paul Bearer. That comedian's stories aren't completely true. Wait, Dave Chappelle didn't buy weed from a baby? In Spanish, hats are called sombrero because they make sombre shade. PGP encryption that a lot of large businesses use stand for pretty good privacy. It's good to know data security is so important. Cul-de-sac means bottom of the bag, as in the only way out is where you came from. And my first language is French. That is, bag end. Bilbo's house. That got translated right back into cul-de-sac in French versions of the books. Or Ida potatoes. Crossed Oregon state line where factory was, into Idaho. Just then realized name. Sonic the Hedgehog's best friend is named Miles per hour. Miles per hour. How the fuck did this take nearly 30 years of life to see? Whenever you see weather stations on the news and notice, hey, I wonder why they went with some random town in the area when there are other bigger ones nearby? It's likely because there's a regional airport or small airfield. They all need accurate weather for planes to take off, including wind direction, intensity, and barometric pressure, so they have all the equipment available to show the bigger picture locally. Why they are called contact lenses. Jackie Chan is one person. My first language is Spanish, so I always thought it was Jackie Chan. The only movie I had seen him in was one with Owen Wilson, so I thought Owen Wilson was Jack and Chan was Jackie Chan. I race cars in an amateur league. There is a blue 240SX with the name Blue Bayou. I always thought they were from Louisiana or something until the other day when I realized it sounds like Blue Bayou. Mr. Dink from the 90s cartoon Doug. He and his wife are Dinks because it stands for dual income, no kids. If you recall Mr. Dink showing things off, that's why. Very expensive. Arrested Development. It wasn't just a description of the family's maturity level, their property development was Arrested all 5 seasons, and I literally only figured this out watching the final episode. When I was about 19, shortly after Christmas, I went to get my wallet from the drawer next to my bed, only to find it missing. Thinking to myself, did I not take it out of my coat? I went to check, only to find it absent from there too. Panicking, I realize I've likely lost my wallet, or worse, had it stolen, and start ringing to cancel my debit cards. A few days later, my dad hands me my wallet. It's missing my bank cards, and about £30 in cash I had in there, but things like my store loyalty cards, staff discount card for where I worked, and ID cards. He says he found it in a nearby park, yet the wallet was clean. This is the same man who routinely needed to borrow money from me, over $1,000 at this point I'm unlikely to see again. I only realized the other day it's very likely that he took the wallet from where I kept it, took the money out of my wallet, and then I realized it was missing before he had chance to put it back, then merely claimed to find it a few days after to avoid admitting to taking the money himself. My car door was slightly ajar, not unusual on Monday, and all week I couldn't find my backpack, also not unusual. I lose shit very often, and I was having a reunion with my friends all weekend, so I figured I was just shit-faced and went to my car to my phone charger or something. Took a couple days for me to realize, oh shit, I got robbed. Just this week I realized that the icon for my clock app changes to show the current time. Not me, but my friends didn't know Tinder itself was a pun. Because when you swipe on each other, it's a match. Not extremely recently, but it took me 21 years to notice that my birthday is exactly 9 months after Valentine's Day. That's right, motherfuckers, I'm a product of love. My birthday is 9 months from my dad's birthday. Also, growing up watching 90s sitcoms with emasculated guys, I developed the idea that married couples didn't have sex very often, and so I put the two ideas together and assumed that I was the product of the time my parents had sex. Turns out married couples actually have a lot more sex than anyone lets on. That the lines on the back window of my car are the defroster. I live in Oz and park in the garage, so I never get frost on my car. I am 37 BTW. That the word movies is slang that derives from moving picture. I'd never considered it slang before, and it still feels weird whenever I say it aloud now. My son was learning about inhabitants of Nova Scotia called Acadians who got relocated to Louisiana, where they're called Cajuns. Acadians equals Cajuns blew his mind. The title of the kids' reading show Between the Lines is a play on the phrase reading between the lines. I spent a good 25 years thinking what's black and white and red all over? A newspaper. Was the absolute dumbest joke ever told and couldn't for the life of me understand why so many people told it. I thought it was some weird proto-Andy joke, and the joke was that it doesn't make any sense. Don't remember what triggered the realization, but for anyone else with the same knowledge hole as me, it's a pun. The joke is that they aren't saying red all over, they're saying read all over. I have heard the words hors d'oeuvres many times. I have seen the words hors d'oeuvres many times. I only put together that they are the same word last week. I moved into a new place last month, and for the longest time I thought it was called Chester Drawers. Turns out it's called Chest of Drawers. I am not a smart man. Hi, I'm Chester Drawers, and I'm here to talk to you about a dynamic storage solution. Alphabet equals alpha beta. Apparently everyone knows this. I'm in my 40s. Nurse here. You can actually see the brain connection being made when you tell a teenaged boy that the brown ring around their penis is the scar from their circumcision. I told people I was uncircumcised when I was younger because I didn't really know what it was and no one ever explained it to me. Thanks to television, I thought it was strictly a Jewish thing. As soon as I realized that I had in fact been circumcised, it was an immediate realization that the brown ring was the scar. Mind blown. My babysitter became basically family. She was an old woman and took care of us for like 20 years. Before I was even born, she cared for my siblings. One morning she didn't show up to work. Didn't call. Nothing. Same thing the next morning. My mom went to her house and found she had passed away. She came home and told us kids. We asked a few questions. How did you find her? Well, she died in her car. Oh. Okay. She must have just died of old age, she was like 74 after all. Years later I figured it out. Like 13 years. I was telling a friend about who she was and what she meant to our family. Then it hit me. Like a ton of bricks, people don't just die randomly one morning sitting in their car at their house. Their bodies don't just shut down. She commits suicide at the age of 70-something by carbon monoxide poisoning. She turned the car on in a closed garage and ended her life. My parents didn't want to tell me or my siblings because they didn't want it to impact how we thought of her and what she meant to us as a family. She suffered from severe depression all her life, and as a kid I had no idea. It is truly heartbreaking because we loved her like a grandma. I wish she were still around. We are still friends with her sister who is in her mid-90s, so our babysitter could still be here too. If you're suffering, talk to someone, because there are people who will want you around tomorrow and 20 years from now. Valve released Steam. Took me entirely too long to realize the pun. That my girlfriend taking a shower anytime her male co-worker would text her wasn't a coincidence, and this morning I got the luxury of watching her take a nude selfie for another man. That my neighbor's 3 teenage boys were the ones who actually struck and killed my dog when I was 12. They blamed a mysterious white Mercedes for it. My dad, who was abroad at the time, was devastated. My stepmom totally bought into it. It was 40 years to realize that there was never any white Mercedes. Fez from that 70s show is actually spelled Fez, and it stands for foreign exchange student, cause they couldn't say his name. Blew my mind. Howdy is short for how do you do.